This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
Well, I got to tell you, Sports 225 is the second best TV show on Cox 4 because the best one is Louisiana Football TV with Lee Brecheen. Sometimes. But Lee Brecheen, who does have his own show that airs the first time on Tuesdays here on Cox 4 and is all about exactly that, Louisiana football, is a great guest. And it's been too many years since you came on the last show right before the signing period. Man,
it's been a long time.
I know. I make jokes.
Rejoined the gym, I think it's been 3 years. So I counted. I just joined it. It's been 3 years. So, yeah, 3 years and 3 months.
Lee, I make the joke. Well, for starters, there's a joke to be made about having two Lees on the same show. But, you know, he's joke about people being the hardest working man in Baton Rouge show business. He is the hardest working man in Baton Rouge show business for a number of reasons. Because when I started Sports Monday back in 1995, so it's the 22nd year of this show, you started the magazine the year after, right?
Yes.
And then you started television somewhere in the early 2000s.
I actually started in 95, getting the business license and starting the fundraising that we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Asking people, if I do this, will you back me? If I go to the bank, will you sign a contract? So technically, yeah, it's been a long time. Don't want to mention my age again. You asked me earlier, but yeah, I was 26 when I started, 25 and a half when I started in the business.
Yeah, well, you're lucky.
Out of radio.
See, but you look the same kind of as you did that much time ago. Not me. Anyway, so what Lee specializes in more than anything is recruiting, evaluating prep players, and coordinating with colleges. And then on his own show, which you can watch at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Cox 4?
6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
6:30 to 7:30. He gets great guests from the world of football to come in, and sometimes you delve away from there and stuff, you know. And your remnants, you can't see behind the scenes in the studio, but his chairs, his football, they're over there. So, but to the matter of point, which is it's football season and it's recruiting. That's not football season; it's football recruiting season, and this show is going to air a few days before National Signing Day.
Right.
So let's start with Louisiana football. Good year, bad year, in between year.
You know, this is what we fight. I know that you're a very big expert in volleyball. And so I want to use that analogy because football, you have a lot of newbies that come in and say, well, you know, that volleyball player is this good, but I'm only been doing it for 2 years, volleyball. And that's what you get in football. You get guys that are, and look, I started young too. I wasn't that good back then too, but evaluation of a player, my dad was a coach. I grew up around it. And, you know, it's kind of easy when you're in that coaching tree to grow up and say, look, a D lineman's supposed to look this way. He's supposed to move this way. This is what a big-time D1 lineman is. This is what a 1AA D lineman looks like. Like your volleyball. This is a D2. This is a D3. And this is why. So more people are interested today of when they're committing and where they're visiting than the evaluation. And to me, the most important part of recruiting is how good is the guy.
Right.
And that's what I do.
Well, I've always had this supposition, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in almost every sport in America, in prep and youth and club sports, they all play against each other. And, you know, you mentioned volleyball. All the best volleyball players play against each other in the club seasons around the country. All the swimmers can gauge times. In soccer, there are national championships, and they all play against each other. But in football, they only play against the people in their own state. Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of crossover. So, you know, the old line is, you know, you got to put a fence around Louisiana, like if you're LSU, and if you're the other schools, you got to get the next best players in Louisiana. But sometimes the players that you're evaluating in Louisiana might not be as good as you think they are because you can't compare them to somebody from Nebraska or somebody from New Jersey or somebody from Texas in certain years.
Well, just so that you don't feel like you're going crazy. You know, I go to these football college conventions every year. And one person I like to talk about on your show later on is Ty Detmer. Heisman Trophy winner, Brigham Young University.
Yep.
Where are you going to meet Todd Detmer and talk for an hour over coffee with 1,000 other coaches? But recruiting in this state is cherished and loved by every college coach in America from here to Minnesota. And, when they're telling you that we come to Louisiana for skill players, it's like, really? You're going to come here from Utah? Coach Willingham, the head coach of Utah, is like, no, I'm going to try and sign 3 skill players from Louisiana. I'm going to spend $10,000 in flight money of my alumni to come sign 3 skill guys, because the state of Utah might have 2 skill guys that are D1 in the whole state. And there's Brigham Young, there's Utah State. There's 3 D1s.
Right.
So it's real fascinating how many people come over here, and there's over 100 colleges out of the 110 D1s that recruit Louisiana. That's amazing. Florida gets that. Atlanta gets that. California really doesn't get that many, because you either have those West Coast recruiters that recruit the West Coast, or they don't. But, Louisiana's a different animal. USC comes to Louisiana and tries to recruit. So, I see a lot of kids play, Lee, that are not ranked, and I think they're as good as the kids that are ranked. And what I do is I follow them at Louisiana Tech or ULL of Lafayette or even Nichols McNeese, and these kids go pro. You look at the pro players from Louisiana that come out of the smaller schools. There are a lot of them. And there's a reason for that, because LSU, A, can't take them all, and B, they didn't want to take a shot on a kid that wasn't ranked. They didn't trust their evaluation.
So they ought to trust in Lee Brecheen. There you go. He has Louisiana Football Magazine and Louisiana Football TV, which you can watch at 6:30 on Tuesdays on Cox 4. But this is Sports 225. When we get back, we'll talk more football recruiting with Lee. I'm Lee. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College, and I really encourage you to come out to our 12-acre campus here on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge.
Contact ITI to enroll in our Construction Management Associate and Occupational Studies degree program. Learn to plan, coordinate, budget, and supervise construction projects, and collaborate with engineers and architects in the residential, commercial, industrial, and heavy civil construction industry sectors. Call now about this new, exciting career degree. ITI Technical College. Begin your journey to a better life.
All right, we're back on Sports 225. It's the show before what is National Signing Day in football. Last week we had Chuck Goodwin on from the Bayou Bash, and you can still check that out. If you go to sports225.com, you can actually watch last week's show and get details about that. I promised Lee Brecheen if he came on, I'd get him a Sports 225 shirt. I haven't given you one in a long time.
It's a nice shirt.
Oh, yeah, well, just wear it where people see it.
Looks a little like Oakland Raiders, man. I like that.
You mean the Las Vegas Raiders?
Okay, excuse me.
That's just another reason
Las
why
Vegas
I've had
Raiders.
all I can do with some sports just drive me nuts. But anyway, so Lee's here because not only does he have his own show, but as we talked about, in the magazine, here you go. He's reaching over. So, and he's got this magazine, Louisiana Football, to take away the glare, whatever.
Proud of this 20 years, man.
It's the website's called Louisiana
LAFootballmagazine.com.
LAFootballmagazine.com. Anyhow, we're talking about evaluating players, and specifically in Louisiana. How do players either fall through the cracks or end up places like, for example, the guy with the Cowboys, who's a Louisiana player, Prescott, who didn't end up at LSU, who desperately has needed quarterbacks over the last decade.
You want the truth?
Well, yeah, of course I do. How does a guy like Bolden, who, really I never heard of until after he got out of college and then has a good, start with the Patriots. For example, guys like that. And, yeah, I do want the truth. And I can handle the truth.
Well, it doesn't get me in any trouble, too. But the truth is Dak Prescott went to Houghton High School, which is a suburb, kind of like Denham Springs to Baton Rouge.
But on a much rural scale.
Yeah, more rural. But Dak was a guy that looked like a linebacker, but he ran like a skill guy. Like he was 220, 6'2", at 16. As a quarterback, now that's big as a 16-year-old.
Sure.
But he could run, and he didn't hand time 4 or 5. And so these coaches are hung up on these quarterbacks that can run a certain 40 time. But on the field, he looked like a 4.3. He just knew how to run, and he was a big guy. So at 220, he ran a 4.7, and to me, that's like a 4.5 if you're 195 pounds. So, but he was such a great player. He had a great arm. He wasn't developed. But how many kids are fully polished anyway coming out of high school?
I hope none.
But that's what happens in recruiting. The quarterback's always going to be the toughest looked upon. Where is he at now? Is he a red shirt? Is he going to come in and play for us right away? Because they only sign one quarterback, usually a class. But I think they overanalyzed his upside. And a lot of people said, oh, he's going to be a linebacker. I saw him play in a game. And
to your credit, again,
when
not
you
to
leave,
blow any smoke up Lee's butt,
but when
he goes
a drive to Houghton, right?
Yeah.
4.5 hours from the house.
Yeah.
And I see a great football player. Now, is he going to be a linebacker? I don't know. Is he going to be a quarterback? He's going to be a great football player. And I tell this kid, I'm taking you as a football player, and let's give you a shot at quarterback.
Sure.
Well, that's not what a lot of people told him. We think you're a linebacker. Okay, what do you think he's going to say? No, you're off the list. And Mississippi State said, we're going to give you a shot to play quarterback. And the rest is history.
Well, conversely then, how does, for example, the college football world, but specifically LSU, miss on two quarterbacks like Jennings and Harris? Who
you got to go to a few games.
Right. So when you saw them in high school, what were your thoughts? And it's easier for you to say in retrospect, but I'll trust you.
You got to go to the game. You can't just watch a tape for 2 minutes. And I think a lot of college coaches today are just going through the tapes fast. There's so many kids to watch. And they're looking at highlight tapes, and they're looking at one or two plays, or he doesn't look the part. You got to go check that kid out. You got to go watch a game. You got to be there. I went to 91 games this past year.
Then you're not right.
That's right. And I am, it's a little over there. But 91 games times two teams is 3/4 of the teams in the state.
Yeah.
And the ones I didn't go see, I watched full game tape. I didn't turn it off in the first quarter. I watched the whole game. They're kids. They're raw, and they're not developed. But you got to look at the upside. And a lot of schools just didn't take the time to go to Houghton to watch Dak play because he wasn't ranked high enough.
So I got about a minute left of this segment.
Sure.
Do you have enough time for the Ty Detmer story, or do you want to save it for the next segment?
Nicest guy I've ever met in college football coaching. When you meet him,
Yeah.
you can tell. Brigham Young, he'll be there. He's a lifer because this guy, he's just super nice. No ego,
Right.
which is very
He was
rare.
another
coaches.
one. Of course, he had a great college career, but he didn't make it in the NFL. But
Great guy.
You can't equate apples and oranges.
Great guy. And I didn't ask him about his nephew who had decommitted the next day, Dinkelman, the quarterback from Texas.
Oh.
I didn't ask him that because that's the last thing they want to hear at these conventions. But you talk about just a nice guy talking about football and talking about recruiting. And I started the conversation by saying, Ty, I watched you growing up. You were one of my favorite quarterbacks, you and Jim McMahon and Nilsson, the quarterback factory at Brigham Young. And he's like, man, thank you. Instead of just saying, see you.
Yeah.
Well,
I've been lucky enough to deal with BYU people. I've been to BYU. I covered LSU track and field there in 1989. And
they play LSU next year, first game.
Really?
Brigham Young.
Yeah, that's right. Houston.
In Houston.
Yeah. Brigham Young's a wonderful place. You can't get alcohol or caffeine on campus.
No.
The caffeine part killed me.
Strict.
The alcohol, I go off campus to get, but the caffeine. Couldn't even get a cup of coffee on campus. But I'll tell you what, every athlete, every coach, every person from that university I've ever dealt with has been fantastic and good interviews. Anyway, when we get back, let's talk some specific nuts and bolts recruiting. We got 2 segments left, and because it is signing day, and that's why you're here. Although I do want to tell stories.
There we go.
All right, he's Lee Brecheen. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's Sports 225. Oh, hi. I was checking out Yelphi. I do it all the time, all day, because it brings me all the news I need to know in sports. I mean, I've got a customized news feed, real-time scores. It's integrated with Facebook and Twitter. You download it on iTunes, Yelphi, Y-E-L-L-F-Y. It's a great app and a fantastic Twitter feed. All right, we're back on Sports 225. My guest tonight, the other Lee Brecheen. He's the host of his own TV show, Louisiana Football TV, and also Louisiana Football Magazine. He's a recruiting guy, and it's the week before the signing period next week. So, all right, so let's specifically LSU. One of the things that I thought was a positive for LSU, the way things evolved, was to be able to hire Ed Orgeron because evidently he's a very good recruiter. They had a very good recruiting class expected, and that's been able to be maintained.
Right.
Is all that correct?
Yeah, we're going to find out how good Ed is as a closer. You know, he's positioned himself very well. They're in on 7 linebackers. They need 3. Will he get 3 of the 7? We're about to find out.
Oh, you mean there's still variables left in this class a week out?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of variables.
Really?
They've got to sign the linebackers. They have to close on a couple of in-state D tackles. One kid who's got family from Louisiana, Marvin Wilson out of Texas. His mom's from Louisiana. He's the #1 ranked defensive tackle in America, and he's in Houston, Texas, at Episcopal High School. So if they get Marvin Wilson, and there's a kid at Neville in Monroe, Fadarian Mathis, he's 6'6", 290, very advanced for a young kid. Can't lose him. It's now in Alabama and LSU.
6'6", 290. Just think about that in high school.
Yeah, the kid from Neville, it's now between Alabama and LSU. They need to get him.
Who's the other guy with? The other guy down to?
Marvin Wilson, it's Florida State.
Wow.
And LSU.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could lose those 2 battles. I mean, that's how recruiting is. It's a very heartless journey.
Yeah, see, this is my naivete here because I thought at this late juncture that these classes are all decided and, you know, whatever.
Where it's at right now is closing to keep up with Alabama. They have enough good players to keep it going.
Evidently.
But Alabama's they're on their own hemisphere. So I guess my take, Lee, to tell people is that don't worry what Alabama's doing because they're just hand-picking them. You got to beat them to get equal to where they are. Just out-recruit everybody else. And that's what Ed's trying to do. Ed's trying to out-recruit the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States, the Arkansas, the A&Ms. And he is. And if he closes strong, then who's going to be behind Alabama? LSU. And that's really all you can ask for a guy that took over a program that it didn't even look like they were going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah.
And then they win their bowl game in Florida and beat the Heisman Trophy winner. And they look good. And Aranda proved to be worth every dollar they're paying him. And then they get this great young coordinator from Pittsburgh who, by the way, at the convention, every college coach thinks he's the best young coordinator in the country. So, you know, I like the way things are going. I like what Ed's doing, but it's very important to close on these linemen. You know, linemen control the game.
Absolutely.
Skill guys sell tickets and popcorn. They make the plays. But the linemen, they control the line of scrimmage, and you're going to win or lose in the trenches. And so hopefully they get these big D tackles they need.
Do they have any guys coming into this class who will be impact players next year and start in the fall?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they need a lot of them to play because of the depth chart. They're not 3 deep anymore like they were 6 years ago in the national championship game.
Right.
And to get back to championships, they need to get 2 deep. Alabama's 3 deep. So to beat them, you need to be 2 deep. Mm-hmm. You can't just throw 22 great-looking players out there and say, we're putting so many in the NFL. You need depth. So they're going to develop that depth. And the good thing is Clemson is a great example. Dabo Swinney was never a coordinator and was a head coach. Ed Orgeron was never a coordinator, and he's the head coach at LSU. So there's hope that you can be a great coach with great coaches around you. And Clemson in 2015 was young and had a bunch of freshman starters. So what I'm saying to fans is this. It can happen. You can win. You can go to the playoffs with young players. And that's what it would take for LSU to get in the playoffs. They'd have to go with a mixture of seniors and freshmen.
Okay, real quick, is there a quarterback coming in who can help LSU?
I think the kid from St. James, Lowell Narcisse, is like the Clemson quarterback, but he's bigger, like Watson. I know you've watched that kid.
Yeah, of course.
Phenomenal player.
Can he play linebacker? Just a joke.
No.
All right.
He could. But they're similar because they can run and they're very athletic. And before the arm needs to be where it needs to be.
Call for time. Call for time. Those are my hands in there. All right, there you go. We got to take this last break. He's Lee Brecheen. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
was nearly a decade ago that Breck teamed up to Imagine Your Parks, and you imagine big. 12 beautiful community parks from one end of the parish to the other, one family-sized water park, and 5 other parks just for your dogs. You have places to splash and places to explore. You have games to play and camps galore. No matter what you like to do or see, visit Breck.org and see how together we have made Breck better than imagined.
All right, coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, Lee Brecheen is here with me. Thanks to John Williams from JCW for directing the show today, JCW for just about everything you need in the wide world of digital production, websites, advertising, branding. I think I got most of it. Sports225.com is where you can find our listings, and also go to our Sports 225 TV channel and watch this show eventually and every other show that we've done since we went to the half-hour format in August. Whew. Lee Brecheen, who's the
job.
Dak Prescott of this class coming out of Louisiana?
Travis Etienne from Jennings, Louisiana. Jennings.
I've been to the McDonald's in Jennings.
I have too.
Yeah, there you go.
He's a kid. Again, you watch a lot of film. I went to a few games. When he was a sophomore, I was like, this kid's special. He's got it. And LSU didn't have him in high regards until about 3 months ago. They lost the bigger names. And then the greatest thing that ever happened was, I think they're going to get him because he's a Louisiana guy. He's a mama's boy. Doesn't want to live more than an hour from the house. And Clemson offered him. All the big shots want him. Tennessee, Alabama even offered him. But Travis is just an exceptional player. He's like Dak. You got to see him play to appreciate his ability, his upside. He's 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. The LSU fans are going to love this kid. He's got power, he's fast, he's quick, and he's tough, and he's going to give you everything he's got. It's going to be a signee that people say Ed Orgeron's a genius.
It's funny how that goes. How's Tulane going to do?
A lot better. They're getting more locals later. They went out of state, Lee, to get out kids because their thing was out-of-state kids want to come to Tulane even more. The Tulane brand is big out of state.
Louisiana Lafayette?
Doing well. Their best class in the history under Hudspeth, which he needed. So it's his best class.
Yeah, because they went to the 3 bowls in a row and
had a little dip.
Yep.
But they are getting some phenomenal players that were going to Louisiana Tech. Now they're going to UL. And some of these guys could play for LSU.
All right, just a little bit of time left. One player from Louisiana who's going to surprise everybody and go somewhere, we're all going to go, why? What's the deal?
I like a kid named Andre Landry from Acadiana High School going to UL. He's a tight end, defensive end, 6'4", 260. Big-time player. Again, you got to go watch him play to appreciate his talent. Will be a star at UL. Be an NFL guy.
Lee Brecheen is the host of his own show, Louisiana Football TV. It's at 6:30 on Tuesdays on Cox 4. I'm Lee. The other Lee also has Louisiana Football Magazine. The website's called?
LAFootballMagazine.com.
Okay. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you gleaned a few recruiting tidbits for this, and we'll see you next week on Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die.